Section C of paper 2 is the challenges of natural resource management. And in this case here, you've got a map of the UK's fracking industry. And the question says, suggest one reason for the development of fracking. The main one is because we've discoveries of shale gas. Obviously, without shale gas, you can't frack. Because we've exhausted other energy sources in the North Sea, because it'll increase our energy security. Okay, are the main ones. You just have to name one. Describe the distribution of areas which existing licenses for fracking. They are in brown. There is no real distribution. You can just say that they're very widely distributed and include areas such as the northeast or northwest. That's fine. You just have to widely distributed 1 mark. If you can locate some parts of the UK, 2nd mark. Then for 6 mark, I'd do it as a one-piece paragraph. I made a video on how to write a piece paragraph, so you can have a look at that. But I'd say overall, I will explain why the process of fracking causes conflict. You can say, well, one of them is because fracking has massive environmental issues. It can contaminate the water supply. It can create tremors. It's a fossil fuel, so it'll release CO2 and affect air pollution. And it explained to me why the negative, who'd suffer, local people, vulnerable people, whereas people who benefit would be the fracking companies, the Minister of Energy, because they can provide energy. We potentially would benefit as customers because obviously we've got it would reduce our dependency on other countries, therefore keep prices more stable. We pay less money. That's all good for our wallet. Okay, so it's kind of a classic environmental impact of negatives versus economic benefits of fracking. You should have to discuss whilst naming specific stakeholders. Okay. We then have a graph here. The key thing to notice, and pay attention to these graphs in the exam, notice there's missing one here. That's because there's a question about it here, saying here's some data, fill it in. So you just have to fill in the data to 210, which is just around there, and you bingo, you get a mark. Then it has to calculate the difference between Dartmoor and London. In January, Dartmoor's in here, is over there, London's here. You can calculate there, this minus that equals, and you've got an answer of 140, which is A. Okay. You then have a map here. Water falls in the UK in the northwest, and it doesn't really fall much in the southeast. So we've got water surplus in the northwest and water deficit in the southeast. And unfortunately, that's where most of our population lives, the southeast. So you can say, well, why might there be need for water transfer? The main one is the most densely populated areas of the UK have the least amount of water that falls. Would be a mark. If you can give an example of areas that have water surplus and deficit, would get a 2nd mark. And if you can actually describe and explain what deficit and surplus means, you can give a 3rd mark, and what transferring would do. Then that's a weird part of the exam where you just have to skip a lot of answers. So in the case of red and green, we skip question 4 on food, we skip question 5 on water, we go straight to energy. And for energy, we've got a map of Africa, and the map says what is the percentage of electricity from hydroelectric power in Mauritania. Mauritania is North Africa. It is just over here. It is 30 to 49. Bingo, 1 mark. And then it says describe the distribution of countries in North Africa where the percentage of electricity from hydroelectric power is 85% or more. You notice they're all in red. They tend to be along the equator, which is where my mouse is here. So that means most of these countries are within the tropics, and tropical regions are in areas of low pressure that allow hot air to rise and creates rainfall. You know that from the global atmospheric circulation model, and this is in Hadley cell. Okay, so you just have to explain that, describe where they are. Okay, you don't even have to explain there. Sorry, you just have to describe where they are. And then 2 causes of energy insecurity. Well, one of the causes is unequal distribution of fossil fuel, volatile gas prices, corrupt leadership, high consumption. Just name 2, get 2 marks. And the last one says explain how energy security can be improved. And that's the time to shine and talk about the tar sands in Alberta, Canada, the shale gas and fracking in the US and the UK. You had a map about fracking just above you can use as a source. You could talk about wind and solar farm in the UK. The move towards renewables. The way I'd plan this 6 marker is the 2nd option for 6 marker. I wouldn't make a piece paragraph because you just have to explain how it can be improved. I'd pick 3 ways in which it can be improved and explain how it would improve it. So A1, A2 times 3. Does that make sense? And that is the end of the paper.